Hello, welcome to this new episode of this networking series. In today's video, we're going to be configuring a router, a switch, and at least 3 hosts. And we're going to add these all together into a network. We're going to use Packet Tracer. So if you have Packet Tracer, you can follow along. We're gonna get started. First thing I will add to the board will be a PC. Maybe I have to add also another PC for the other end, and to some variety I'm going to add also a server. I need some routing devices. I will choose a router, the ISR 4321, and I will connect also a switch, which will lie right over here. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to connect a console cable from my RS32 onto the console of the router. And secondly, we need a crossover copper wire from the fast Ethernet into the fast Ethernet 0 of the ISO router. Next, we're going to bind the gigabit Ethernet port 0/0/1 onto the fast Ethernet port on the switch. And lately, we're going to connect also the computer at the other end and the server. So we are done for the physical part. Now we have to deal with IP addressing, and of course with configuring the router inside. But first thing, we're going to deal with the IP address. So we need at least 2 networks. We are going to use, as for the network 1, we're going to use that 0.24. Let's call this net 1. And the net 2, that will be of the range 10.0.0.10.128 with a mask 25. So we are going to assign the first range, the network 1, to this portion going from the router to the left, and the second net will go from the router to the right of the network. So let's get started. The interface of the router will be, let's give this, let's call it A, and that will have the IP being a mask of 24. We can assign the IP1 to the, let's call this the gigabit interface 0 of the router. I think it's 000. We're going to assign .1. For the PC, we are going to assign .2, and at the other end, we're going to assign to the gigabit interface of the router. We're going to assign it .129. Then we are going to separate an IP address for the switch, because we are going to use SSH. So in order to use SSH, we are going to need an interface, an IP address configured. It's not necessary to work there. The switch should be a plug and play device. It should let all packets pass by default, but just because we want to connect via SSH, therefore I need to have a IP configured. So the PC from the other end of the network will have the 131, and the server from the other side of the network will have the 132. So this is like for our logical part, and now we can just simply connect via console to the router and start applying the configuration. The first thing we say is no, right? Enable config terminal, and the first thing that I am going to define is the host name, which is the name of the router. I will also enable a mod, which is the greeting, let's say, or the message of the day. Welcome to my home router, something silly. Next, we need to start configuring passwords. Let's treat the lines first of all. For the line console 0, password will be Cisco. For the line aux 0, password will be Cisco. And for the line VTYs from 0 to 4, we're going to say password Cisco. We are going to also enable some password for the enable mode, for the privilege mode. Then we say enable secret Cisco, and also we are going to create or configure the domain name. So IP domain name alphasoft.nft. We have the domain name. We need a username for remote connections. We'll call this user address secret will be Cisco, and we also need to do some encryption. So crypto keys generate RSA general keys. We choose the 1024 for that matter. That will enable our SSH connection by now. Now I need to start configuring the interface, Ethernet 0. So we have to say interface, just a gigabit, I think is the 0.0.0, the IP address, which will be 10.0.0.1 if I'm not mistaken. I just take a look at the IP. Yep, that will be the .1 actually. Yes, with the mask to .0. It says something is wrong there. What can be wrong? Let's try it again. Let's enter the interface again. So interface, wait a minute. Okay, we are in the interface, but let's do it again. Interface gigabit Ethernet 0.0.0, IP address 10.0.0.1 255.255.255.0. Now it works. Node shutdown to enable the interface. So that will be for one interface. Now we configure this interface. In order to prove that this is working, we can then go ahead and configure the computer. Simply we're going to assign the computer the PC.2. That'll be 0.0.0.2 255.255.255.0, and 0.0.0.1 will be our default gateway. So if we test this connection by executing a ping command from our workstation to 10.0.0.1, we have a nice response. So I will also connect for the last time via my terminal, and probably let's try to just exit from this session. Let's try to exit from this section, and let's try to connect via SSH. So we connect via SSH of the 10.0.0.1 with the name address, and here we are as the password. We see our daily message appearing here. If I go into enable mode, I have to issue a password, and here we are. Now I can configure the next IP address, right? So interface gigabit ethernet 0/0/1 IP address 10.0.0.10.129 255.255.255.128, and not shut down to enable the wait a minute, shut down. Let's shut down the interface, and let's not shut down it. See what happened. Interesting enough, I don't see the interface coming up, but we can still test that if we just from here try to ping that interface, which is 10.129 if I'm not mistaken. Yep, that 8 is responding pretty good. So the next step will be to configure the PC over here, assign this PC the corresponding IP address. We are going to keep this PC the 131.b1.0.0. Actually 10.131, and the mask, which will be 255.255.128, and the IP we assigned to the router, that was the .129. So that is this interface. We are going to connect to that interface via these settings. So now we can test our configuration and basically ping 10.0.10.129. We ping the router. On our interface, we ping the router. On the other remote interface, it responds, and we ping the computer, the other end of the interface. They all reply properly. Now I will configure this server. So I will then simply choose the server. Will have the 132, still the same mask, 128, and the default gateway, that will be the 129, which is corresponds to this interface right here. So that's it. Now I will do my pings again from this workstation, from this server. Try to ping 10.0.10.131, which is the PC. The PC in my network responds. The router responds on one end. Router on the other end responds, and the PC on the other end responds. So far so good. Now I'm going to connect via SSH onto my router. using SSH. 0.0. We can use our interface 129 with name address to connect to that router. Yeah, sometimes it takes a little while, but something went wrong here. So let's try again. 10.0.0. Let's try the other port or interface, see what happened. Yep, connects to the other one, no problem. And here we are. Cisco the password. So that's all for the router configuration. Now the switch, if I want to enable SSH on the switch, I need to configure it. So right now there's no IP address on the switch. The only way to connect to the switch is via a cable. So I'm going to grab my laptop and I'm going to go to the switch, and I will connect with a console cable onto the switch. And now I'm going to configure the switch so that I have SSH enabled and an IP address that we haven't assigned yet. So first thing first, conf the host name. This is my super switch 1. IP domain name will be Fusoft.net or NFT. I will also configure the lines console 0 to have password. I will configure the line aux 0 to also have line aux 0. Something happened here. What is this? Enable conf t line. So let's see what kind of lines do we have. Well, it doesn't have aux, this particular switch. So we're gonna configure VTY 0 through 4, and we're going to define the password Cisco. Also username Andrews secret Cisco, and we're going to also enable secret Cisco, so that we have everything is pretty much secure. Lately we're going now we're going to just do the encryption part. Or wait, maybe we need a service password encryption activated, and we're gonna do also the crypto keys generate RSA general keys. 1024 is something reasonable to start with. Now it is enabled, and as far as I know, now we just need to configure the interface, which we are going to actually interface. Yeah, we need to configure the IP address, right? Interface VLAN, in this case that will be the VLAN 1, and the IP address that we are going to administer at this point will be the 130. So that will be IP address 10.0.10.130 with the mask 255.255.255.128, and we issue the command not shard. So that way we just set up a VLAN, and via that VLAN I should be able to connect to my to my switch. So right now my laptop doesn't have an IP address, so we are going to try to connect from this computer via SSH 10.0.0.130 address. So we are now trying to connect to the switch. Nothing is happening, but we can try something different. Let's try to ping the switch. We ping the switch, and the switch is not responding. Okay, now it's responding. It took some time for the package to populate on the network. It has some delay just to simulate the same effect on a real network. We try to connect again, and still is not responding. So we're going to double check that everything is in order. So we connect again via the terminal, and since the interface is up, we might have to probably username address secret Cisco, right? That is for the remote connections. Let's try it again. 10.0.10.129 was that? Wait a minute. Yes, the switch is 130, and now we are connected to the switch remotely, and we have, yep, that's what we wanted to do. We can also configure a mod banner. Oops, okay, banner mod welcome to the switch. So that is pretty much it. So yep, that's pretty much the purpose of this exercise. I should also be able to connect to that switch from here, from the 10.0.10.130. we should be able to connect to that switch. It's taking a while. Maybe if I just do the ping first. Might take some time to populate that IP address. And is actually not getting through. So it seems like I still have to do something else in order to connect from outside the network. But for the purpose of this exercise, we are done. Thanks for watching.